This is from your literature book that you will get in the Moorish Science Temple of America or Moorish Holy Temple of Science, also in the Order of the Great Seal as a requirement of study and analysis. A divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to their national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them. And it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and the principles that delude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and to go back to the state of mind of their forefathers, divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine rights as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion, and there is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection to the Moorish divine and national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by the other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government, and not under a granted privilege as has been the existing condition for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those who know law in the city hall and among the officials of your government, and ask them in an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they are glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make a man. It is free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone. And without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I'm hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free constitution, a free national government, and the enforcement of the Constitution, to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of government. I'm depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate, and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution for the United States of America. I love my people, and I desire for their unity and mind back to their own national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. And if Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national constitution, national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name. because they placed their trust upon issues and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro alludes to the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored alludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon the earth. And these names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and the South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at that time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitution law that was in force since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, and since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of my people and citizens. So there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost. And that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do hereby believe that the administration of the government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs that and merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. So I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which has been committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know that it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin, and there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc. In their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world, they will not refrain from their sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. They fought the Southerner for all these great misuses, but I have traveled to the South, in the South, and have examined conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing those things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I am hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light. And as you know, we just went over the constitutional laws set by the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, obligated to all the people, and the sister read them earlier. Did you hear them? That's enforcing the Constitution. Now you make up your own decision who's lying.
I had a couple more questions. One was saying, why are we using the titles Bay and Ill?
To the north is predominantly Bay and Eels, and this This is the territory that they've been operating the unum sanctum from, Central Northwest America, or Mexico, even though the empire is from the coast of Africa on that side, which is actually South Asia, and across the Atlantis, even to North, Central, South America, including Mexico. It is from North America, the heartland of the Moroccan Empire, that they've been executing their war machine upon the rest of the world. Does it not become obvious?
If a person calling themselves a judge unlawfully enters a plea on another person's behalf in the place that they call traffic court, along with the fact that the judge's willful violation of the Fifth Amendment due process, what would you suggest a person do next? An affidavit of fact? Thank you, Amir Graceville, for taking the time to answer some questions, and I can never thank you enough for helping me help myself to take the chains off.
And this is again, when she was reading the Supreme Court cases, it is obvious that that's the enforcing of the Constitution, and the things that have been diluting the slavery has been those things that have been in opposition to it. And again, it becomes obvious. And this is why we give people documents, because these questions are logical, but when this information is exposed to the people, it becomes obvious to COINTELPRO operations that has damaged the movement.
As far back as the 1920s, when he began as FBI director, Hoover had gone after persons like Marcus Garvey.
In the summer of 1978, I interviewed a man who worked as an informer for the FBI during the 1960s. His name is Dothard Perry, also known as Ed Riggs, also known as Bill Perry, also known as Othello.
How were you paid? The pay was always in cash. Cash, and you would sign a card. It would go like this. A rendezvous or a drop-off point would be picked out either by yourself or the agent. You would meet the agent there. Usually it would be in a vehicle. You get in the vehicle, he would hand you the money. He would tell you first to count the money. He would tell you the amount while you counted it. If the amount was there, he would then bring out a card. On that card would be for the week of such and such. In other words, the week was dated. So-and-so has been paid the amount of. Then you would sign the card, and then the agent would sign the card. The reason for this is that if all of a sudden the IRS became very interested about where you were getting all this extra money from, you could always tell them to go back to the Bureau, and the Bureau would have your cards on file.
I see. Were there such things as bonuses?
Oh, yes.
What were they paid for?
Bonuses were paid for, suppose while you were meeting with, or you were at a meeting with Bobby Seals, Chulai of the Red Army happened to come to the meeting too, which is something which would be a new development. That's bonus time.
In other words, a hot piece of information.
Hot piece, very hot piece. A lot of information that I gave out was the undoing of certain groups or certain people.
Why have you decided to talk to me?
For the simple reason, I think this information should be getting out, should be put out to the public. I think not only black people, but everyone should become aware of what your so-called law enforcement agencies do to so-called enforce the law. Because between you, myself, and the audience, I've seen more felons in law enforcement than I have in prison. To understand the people, you have to understand the culture. To infiltrate, you have to understand. You had a lot of so-called white liberals that were infiltrating the so-called black groups using the information that they had gathered from the studies of blacks.
You mean just to understand the behavior pattern of our people?
Oh yeah, I can, you know, Will Heaton could name out some jams of Miles Davis that I hadn't even heard of. He could name off some books that I hadn't even read pertaining to black culture.
Do you ever see agents actually studying the music of...
Yes, yes. Yes, I've seen them going over even video portion of cultural events. One lone assassin theory. The Bureau and other intelligence agencies are very good at conspiracies. They are very good at setting people up to be killed. They are very good at making innuendos so the person will be killed.
City police don't know about, because they have policemen in there. They don't let black people form anything without some policemen in there. And while I was in the black Muslim movement, over the black Muslim movement, many of the police who were sent to infiltrate us, they're black, would tell me, say, look, I'm a cop, but I have to come. They would tell me. I knew the Muslim movement was full of police. So don't you think anything is going down that they don't know about. The only thing that goes down is what they want to go down. And what they don't want to go down, they don't let it go down.
Would you say to American citizens that this situation of surveillance and infiltration continues to this day?
Oh, yes.
On the dimension that you experienced?
Probably much larger by now.
Larger?
Oh, yeah. Let me put it to you like this. Each year, everything gradually escalated up more and more. So I figure when I left, it didn't stop escalating. As they say, one monkey does not stop anybody's show.
On all the rest of us.
Hey, what's happening?
Tell your neighbor, I don't want you to cuss. I just want you to say, raise up 15. That's the word.
Yes, that's right, buddy.
15
That's right.
and a union.
That's right, Phil. Fed.
Brothers and sisters,
Feds.
I'm glad to be with you in Richmond today.
Feds.
And I'm honored to join you at this national convention.
Here's the guy right here. Hey, Glenn, that's the guy that ran over your foot that's hiding his face. Hey, that's the narc right there. We got the feds right here. Feds.
First, you don't want
Feds. There's Phil Wilato, the Fed. There's Phil Wilato pushing the Jew race war psyop here.
Getting heavy here.
Jew race war psyop, Fed, commie Fed right there. Yeah, I got that, Phil. You're a commie Fed. You're a Fed. Zionist Fed.
And of course, when the people see the hypocrisy or the contradiction, it's only confusing when they don't know the law. You see the point? And so when the prophet said, go back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers, and he said, since that constitution has never been changed, you understand the coup d'etat, when they modified it and changed it into a corporation, that's when they converted your rights into a crime and started what? Selling you licenses for rights. You see the point? So those are principles that are practiced that delude the slavery, aren't they? Now you understand what the big sellout is? Meaning that we're not knocking anyone. We're telling which if you read the prophet's literature and enforce the Constitution, it becomes obvious who is who. And Nathaniel, remember when we was talking on the way up here and we were talking about maxims and bringing back people back to points? These questions, last couple questions are very pertinent and very important because they prove the point. Remember when I was reading the Supreme Court law? And then we just read the divine warning by the prophet. Isn't in the divine warning by the prophet for the nations clearly showing the people that the enforcement of the Constitution is at the heart of the Moorish movement? Isn't that very clear? He even says, help me in my great missionary work to bring my people back into the constitutional fold of government, enforcing the Constitution for the United States of America, our Constitution. Is that not the highest level of civics? It absolutely is. But yet, you see a lot of people in and out of the Moorish movement are claiming that this movement has nothing to do with civics. Do you see how contradictory that is? And stare decisis, which is Supreme Court cases, you can see multiple levels where the Supreme Court came on the side of the people and tell you that the right of travel cannot be licensed. So what happens when somebody tells you something that deludes to slavery and tells you that a right can be licensed by the Bar Association foreigners? Which is exactly opposite of what Noble Drew Ali is saying. So do I need to answer that, or do people need to pay attention to what's obvious? And see, because people like to take sides, they like to say, well, Taji guy said this, and the Grand Sheikh or the Sheikhs has said that. Why don't they deal with what the Prophet said and what the Supreme Court said? And it becomes obvious as who's enforcing the law and who's not. And again, and I repeat this, you see the importance of maxims and the importance of Constitution. That's your measuring point. You don't get caught in personalities. You don't get caught in titles. You measure everybody by constitutional principles. Everybody. Then you don't get tricked. Now see, this is what the implication is. The assumption is because someone in the temple says that it appears to have authority, right? Because they're using the power of the seat. But upon examination, they're violating the Constitution. You see the problem? But what it really indicates is that their fears or their lack of enforcing the law, they're actually trying to violate or justify the breaking of the law and the stealing of the people's birthright because they haven't enforced the law. But they're counting on the fact that people don't know the law, so they figure they got the power of the seat so they can tell the people what they want to tell them, because they don't want to do what? Rock the boat? Now, some people will try to make it personal, but that isn't personal. That's the fact. And this is the danger of people not studying, because they allow people to use authority colorably and don't know when it's happening. So the confusion is only exists if people don't know the law. Meaning that you know how it says, I went to the store to get a loaf of bread with a 10-note bill, and I got 2-cent change. My friend went to the store to get a loaf of bread with a 10-note bill, and he got $7.50 back. I'm confused. No, what you're saying is that you can't count. If the loaf of bread is $2.50, you should know that it's not debatable. It's not determined what suit the guy at the cashier has, what complexion he is or she is, what belief they have. The rule is mathematics. Likewise, when you're dealing with social orders, the rules, the fundamental, what you call the foundation, rule of land, what do they say? What's the supreme law of the land? What's the supreme law of the land?
Supreme Court, the Constitution.
All right. So what did Drew Ali tell us to do? To enforce what? What did he tell us to enforce? The Constitution. So what does the Supreme Court say? The constitutional secured right that the people have a right to travel on the roads. With or without a license, without a plate, and no license. Because it's a right, it's not a privilege, and the police cannot do what? Convert rights into a crime. Haven't they been doing that? So anybody that supports that criminality is doing what? Practicing those things that delude to slavery. And they can only get away with it because they're counting on the fact that the people don't have this information. You see why we're here at the House of Tombs giving you documents, because the people get caught in what they believe or what club members say because they happen to have titles and they've been getting away with this stuff. Is it personal or is it the law? Is it club or is it national? You see where the problem is? And then people try to do what? Pit us against each other when it's not necessary. They need to enforce the Constitution. And if they were enforcing the Constitution, they'd be here with us saying the same thing. But instead, They're taking an opposite position to protect clubism that they've created on their own, and then sitting in the temples and using the authority of that seat, violating the very Constitution they're supposed to be enforcing, and then the people see it and get confused. But they shouldn't be confused. They should see who's enforcing the Constitution and who's not enforcing the Constitution. Now, is the Supreme Court backing us up, or is they backing up them grand sheets? Are they making stare decisis up, or are they ruling on constitutional cases? Constitutional cases. There you go. See how, and I'm saying it's not dismissing, but I'm just saying if people would pay attention to the information, the questions are really already answered. But the confusion really is this. This is really what the confusion is the discomfort that we all find when we have to admit that we have traitors amongst us, some of whom we're giving credibility, and some of whom are pulling rank because they hold titles, but they're counting on the ignorance of the people. And so rather than be the hypocrite, they actually attack those who actually what? Doing the job and enforcing the Constitution and acting like that person is wrong. You see the problem? When the real deal is that they've capitulated and have not been enforcing law, which is why are people getting injured today? Because they didn't enforce the Constitution. Didn't you always say, if you don't carry the law, what's going to happen? It was going to go negative, didn't it? Isn't it negative? What's happening to our people all over the place? They're getting shot for not having a license. They're actually doing what? Waging war on the people unconstitutionally. And then who's telling these people that they're supposed to have these instruments, these bodily instruments that take their birthright? People who claim to be grand sheiks? And what would they do? Condemn me for telling the truth? You see the problem that we have, Nathaniel? I'm not attacking them, I'm enforcing the law, but they would treat it as if I'm attacking them. Mm-hmm. You see the problem? But Taji guy is the rebel, right? This is why it is important to go to the documents. But anyway, we're going to do this again, Nathaniel. And I want to thank you all for sharing this time with us at the House of Tunes, and with Nathaniel taking his time to do this interview. And we're all tired. We've been working, you know, and but we need to get this work done. And this is back to also what Prophet Nobudrali has said, and he said it continuously. If I could get you all thinking again, you'd save yourselves. Which means this stuff is common sense. Please, you all, please restore your libraries and start reading again. Stop being lazy. Stop thinking that knowledge is anti-God and anti-religion. Please. Anyway, let's close out.
Peace.
Peace.